Welcome to part 4 of my journey through the history of Doctor Who, as I watch and review every episode of the show. In this part, I'll be reviewing the two-part serial The Edge of Destruction, a story set entirely on the TARDIS, which focuses on a mystery on board the ship and builds a lot of the relationship between our core TARDIS team. The episode starts off with the team getting thrown around the TARDIS and knocked out after something goes wrong while taking off from Skaro. Barbara and Susan are the first to get up and see the Doctor on the ground with a head injury. Here we get a classic horror moment with Ian being seen lying unconscious on a chair a couple of times casually, only to see him standing unnaturally when the camera pans up. All but Barbara are acting strangely. Susan is acting violently.
You don't need that.
Ian having episodes as if he's been possessed.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
And the Doctor, who believes Ian and Barbara have sabotaged the TARDIS, is threatening to throw them out. Episode 1 sets up a great mystery. The crew are acting strangely, the clocks are melting, and strange images are popping up on the TARDIS's monitor. This is the first episode where we really get some great content from Barbara. Like Ian's moment in The Daleks, when he refuses to use the Thals as body shields for their own gain, Barbara in this episode has to defend herself and Ian against the Doctor's baseless accusations of sabotage.
You tried to force me to return you to England.
Oh, don't be so stupid.
I know it, I'm sure of it.
How dare you? Do you realize, you stupid old man, that you'd have died in the Cave of Skulls if Ian hadn't made fire for you?
And
what about what we went through against the Daleks? Not just for us, but for you and Susan too. And all because you tricked us into going down to the city.
But
Accuse us? You ought to go down on your hands and knees and thank us. But gratitude's the last thing you'll ever have, or any sort of common sense either.
In episode 2, The Brink of Disaster, we get resolution to the mystery. The Doctor, realising he has been wrong about Ian and Barbara, discovers that they only have 10 minutes left before the TARDIS will be destroyed, and believes there's nothing they can do.
It means that the ship is on the point of disintegration. You're not to blame. All four of us are to blame.
Luckily, Barbara, who's the only one thinking rationally, deduces that the TARDIS has been warning them by electrifying the whole console except for the door opener, melting the clocks to show them that something has happened with time, and lighting up the fault locator to show that something is terribly wrong.
I don't know even where to begin, Chesterton. If only I had a clue.
I think perhaps we've been given nothing else but clues.
The Doctor completely loses hope, before realising that the fast return switch was left pressed down, and that the TARDIS has flown into the solar system right as the sun is forming.
It hasn't released itself.
What? You mean it's been on all this time?
Yes, it must have been.
Oh, come on, Doctor, let's get it unstuck.
Oh, Gaff, yes, just a minute now. There. Ah, that's all right.
After fixing it, everything goes back to normal. This episode is really the final part of the initial character arc for the initial TARDIS crew, and especially the Doctor, whose apology to Barbara marks his transition to a more familiar Doctor to those of us who started watching in the modern era.
I'd like to talk to you, if I may. We've landed on a planet and the air is good, but it's rather cold outside.
Susan told me.
Yes, you haven't forgiven me, have you?
You said terrible things to us.
Yes, I suppose it's the injustice that's upsetting you, and when I made a threat to put you off the ship, it must have affected you very deeply.
What do you care what I think or feel?
As we learn about each other, so we learn about ourselves.
Perhaps.
Oh, yes. Because I accused you unjustly, you were determined to prove me wrong. So you put your mind to the problem, and luckily you've solved it. Yes. Shall we go?
From here on out, the team acts more like the modern doctor-companion relationship. It's also a great episode to showcase all of our main cast's acting abilities, with great moments from all of them. This was probably also the first episode in this rewatch where I really appreciated the incidental music. The melting clock scene has some fantastic accompanying music which heightens the horror aspect of this episode. I'm giving The Edge of Destruction a 9.5 out of 10. I highly encourage anyone who hasn't watched an episode of the 60s era to try this one first. I think this episode is the most similar to a modern episode of the show. It's much shorter than most classic era serials, which makes it easier to watch in one sitting, but also has very similar plot elements to fan favourite episodes like Midnight, Heaven Sent, and more recently Boom. Join me next time as I review the first of many missing episodes, starting off with the first true historical episode featuring the Doctor and team interfering with the life of a real person in Marco Polo.